Hello everyone, it's End Times Talk, and I wanted to be a little bit vulnerable here today, and I wanted to share a testimony that God had put on my heart to share with everybody about a time that the Lord had saved my life when I was about 12 or 13 years old. I had gotten around a bad crowd, and boy, do we all know how bad crowds can lead us astray, and we were trying to get a hold of some marijuana at that age, and we were able to obtain some from somebody that didn't care about kids. Anyways, it just so happened that marijuana had been laced with PCP, and I was not told. And we smoked, and then immediately, about 5 or 10 minutes later, I knew something was wrong. I knew that because we smoked the whole thing, and I had never done anything like that before. Even at the time, I wasn't even smoking weed really. I was just experimenting. It wasn't like a steady thing or anything like that because not a lot of people are going to sell to kids. But there are people who do, and this so happened had been laced with PCP. I remember I was about, I'd say 4 or 5 blocks away from where I lived, and this was the dead of winter. I mean, this was the middle of winter, sub-zero temperatures, super cold out, and so I left the drug house and I went outside without a jacket on. Let me mind you, all right. This whole entire story is without a jacket on. And I went outside and I sat down on the porch because I needed fresh air, and I started to feel my heartbeat in my hands. Like it was so intense. I knew I was dying. I knew something was happening. And so I started to walk without a jacket on home, and I had to cross a school parking lot and go through the sidewalk that was next to the school to get to the other side of the school property to get on my road that I lived on. And all I remember is that there was a person that was walking also on the side of the school, and I had called out to them for help, and I must have been out of it so much they got scared and they ran. Like I was like, help me please, and it scared them so much, from however I was acting, that they screamed and ran. All right, and so I remember when I got to the other side of the school property, I blacked out. I was hallucinating kind of as I was walking and seeing things that weren't there. This person might have not even been there. I don't know. But I believe I collapsed on the other side of this school property. And I don't remember how I got home, but from what I was told, my mother had heard something scraping at the door, and when she opened it, she found me laying on the porch in a puddle of black puke, literally black puke. And she wasn't super strong, and she was able to pull my body inside of the home into my house, and she started praying over me. And I know she should have called 911, but this, she believed, was a spiritual matter, and it surely was. She was able to drag me to my bed, and my bed didn't have a bed frame or anything. I just slept on the floor because we didn't have a lot of money, And she pulled me over and she laid me on my bed, and she said she stayed up all night praying for my life that night, fighting in the spirit for my life, asking God to spare my life. Because I was very unresponsive, but I was alive. She could tell I was breathing at least, and she kept checking on me. And I'm sure if things got bad, she would have called somebody. But she knew I was in the Lord's hands. I woke up the next morning, and I fully recovered from this event where the devil tried to take my life prematurely. But I never understood how I got home. All right? I know I collapsed. Okay? I know I collapsed. And it wasn't until, oh man, I was probably 25 to 28, some years old around there. I'm 35 now, and I had a dream. I had a dream, and I want to say this: on the street that I lived on, there was an old church that used to be on the street that I lived on, and me and my mother attended that church. Now, at the time, I was so angry inside from being abandoned by my dad that I didn't really believe in God, even though I was going to church. I wasn't living it out. I was living in sin. And in this dream, I saw a figure of light which I truly believe was Jesus himself, walking in front of this church with my lifeless body draped over his arms. And the reason I am telling you guys this and being vulnerable before the whole entire internet and before thousands of people now is that the devil wants to kill us. He wants to keep us trapped. He wants to keep us in bondage. He ultimately wants to take our lives. And there's many of you who have struggled with drug addiction. There's many of you who have dealt with overdoses, and that wasn't my first overdose. I had multiple overdoses throughout my life because I continued to use drugs. But I never understood how much God truly loved me, that he literally carried me through. You know, he literally carried me through when I couldn't walk. He picked me up and he carried me, and I know he did. I firmly believe that dream was a vision of that night. And the Lord was showing me what he had done for me, and I saw him walking me in front of that church. And ever since I was a child, when I was young, I wanted to be called to ministry, but when I became into my teenage years, I rebelled, and I rebelled hard. And I'm just so thankful and I'm so thankful and glad that God has taken me and put me back on my feet after all the years of drug addiction and sin. And he's broken me free from that and caused me to want to live a righteous life before him. And I want to be used, and I want to help people and teach people by the mistakes that I've made. And that's why I say the things that I say. That's why I say we got to get sin out of our lives, and we got to be rapture ready. But we also have to just be ready for any time that the Lord calls us home, period. We never know when it's our time. And so what I'm saying is that anybody who's struggling with something, just get it out of your life now. Get it out while you still can, because God cares about you and he loves you. And so I wanted to share this testimony with you of what God had done for me and how he had spared my life, because I felt that it should be made known because of how good and glorious Jesus is. May God bless you, and may God keep you. Thanks for listening.